Our next speaker is Reverend Ryōtoku, who will be exploring Seeking the Buddha Within, evolution of Buddhist concepts from the Pali canon to Mahayana Sutras. So Reverend Ryōtoku began practicing Rin Zazen in 2013, undertaking koan and zazen meditation and completing the Jukai precepts ceremony. He later expanded his studies to the Tendai tradition, completing a 2-year lay leader program and earning a master's in Buddhist studies from the University of South Wales in 2023. He is now based in Japan, continuing his Tendai monastic training on Mount Kei while pursuing PhD research. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Ryōtoku.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So today's theme will be regarding finding the Buddha within and how this idea has changed and expanded to a degree across traditions. And there's two major reasons why I'm bringing this topic today. I guess considering how many people see the different traditions and different ideas, sometimes it's hard to find what is it that binds all of these things into one. This is the thing that I contemplated on my journey as I studied Buddhism. The other is how do we practice? And when we only think of the Dharma as existing outside of ourselves, we're very limited in how we can practice and where we can practice. And it's very difficult to know what practice is suited for us. When I was studying as a monastic, I was working in the airport and I was frustrated with my inability to be able to practice. And I wanted to leave the airport and run off to the monastery. But I knew that that's essentially still running away. And there must be some truth that was accessible, even here whilst working at the airport doing security. And so that's when I started to think about this concept of the Buddha within. But even though I say I thought of it, it's a theme that you find prevalent throughout many different schools of Buddhism. So the wisdom and insight that the Buddha found and the Buddha accessed is accessible for all people at all times. So when the Buddha obtained enlightenment seated upon at the Bodhi tree, he made a statement and he said, "This Dharma that I have attained is deep and hard to see, hard to realize, peaceful, refined, beyond the scope of conjecture, subtle, to be experienced by the wise." And so the Buddha's first utterances upon the attainment of enlightenment was, "This is impossible to teach. This is so deep and profound and beyond the sphere of the intellect. How can I communicate this to other people?" And then the Buddha continued, "This generation delights in attachment. For a generation delighting in attachment, this conditionally and dependent co-arising is hard to see." So then Buddha lamented at the difficulties of teaching, because not only is this insight profound, but then the audience themselves are attached to their own views and their own ways, and their inability to see the conditionally arising phenomena because of that. And he continued, "This state too is hard to see. The resolution of all fabrications, the relinquishment of all acquisitions, the ending of craving, the unbinding." So the Buddha here describes nirvana and the activity of nirvana, the release, and how difficult this is to see because of our own attachments that blind us. So in a sense, when we look at the Dharma that the Buddha obtained, we can see it in terms of two ways. One is this inner realization that the Buddha experienced, this non-conceptual Dharma, which is this Dharma that can't be communicated. It's only experienced by the wise. This is, of course, the true Dharma which we seek. But because it can't be communicated, how is it communicated? Therefore, we have the conceptual Dharma, the Dharma that is taught through words and through languages, which points towards this inner realization, but is not exactly the same thing. So this conceptual Dharma and this non-conceptual Dharma are both found within Buddhism and throughout the texts. At the same time, after the Buddha died, there was a split within the Sangha. However, the different Buddhist communities all agreed that the Buddha possessed two bodies. One, an impure body of form, of flesh and bones. This body composed of the five skandhas, which upon death attained parinibbana. And then a second body, a body of Dhamma, the Dhammakaya. Now, Dhamma is a word for teachings, phenomena, truth. It has many meanings. And Kaya meaning body, but also collection. For example, the Nikaya, the collection found of the Pali canon, is also used for the texts. So the different schools didn't agree on what the Dhammakaya was or what Dhamma was. This body of Dhamma, this true body of the Buddha. Some interpreted this Dhammakaya, this Dhamma, but from the perspective of the non-conceptual Dhamma, this Dhammakaya of enlightened body, this enlightenment itself as body. Some interpreted the Dhammakaya as a collection of the teachings, the collections of the teachings of the Buddha. These were the two perspectives of the bodies of the Buddha. This then expanded and then to the three Buddha body theory, the Trikaya. So if you study Mahayana and Vajrayana teachings, it's a very common thing to have heard, this idea of three bodies of the Buddha. And this third body, this intermediary body, was the one which connects the body of form with this absolute, non-conceptual and unattainable body of Dhamma, referred to in the text as Sambhogakaya. So these words may come up. So we have the first Rupakaya, body of form, or Nirmanakaya, the emanated body, the Sambhogakaya, the body, the intermediary body, and then the Dharmakaya, the true non-conceptual body. So within the Pali Canon, we have texts, words that say, for example, those who see the Dharma see the dependently arising, and those that see the dependently arising see the Dharma. So here we have an equation of dependently arising phenomena and the Dharma. And this was later understood by Mahayana people as emptiness. So emptiness is a theme that we find in the Mahayana as something that's prioritized or emphasized, but it's something that we see having its basis within the Pali Canon itself. Within the Pali Canon, we have, for example, in what respect is it said that the world is empty? The Buddha replied, insofar as it is empty of a self, of anything pertaining to a self. Also, monks' sensual pleasures are impermanent, hollow, false, deceptive. They are illusory. And finally, form is like a clump of foam, feeling like a bubble. Perception is like a mirage, volition like a banana plant, and consciousness like an illusion. However you contemplate them, examine them rationally, they are hollow when you look at them closely. So this view of emptiness found within the Pali Canon emphasizes the emptiness of self, the emptiness of permanence, the impermanence of all phenomena. Within the Mahayana Canon, the emphasis of emptiness became the emptiness of conceptual views that can be grasped. So true reality is beyond what can be grasped intellectually, but it's the same theme we found throughout the Pali Canon and throughout the Mahayana. Secondly, another important theme found within the later schools that has the origin in the early schools is the view of the nature of mind as inherently pure. Within the Pali Canon, we find luminous monks is the mind, and it is freed from incoming defilements. The well-instructed disciple of the noble ones discerns that as it actually is present. Which is why I tell you that for the well-instructed disciple of the noble ones, there is development of the mind. So the luminous mind found in the Pali Canon was an early idea that the mind is inherently pure, but obscured by defilements. And it's from the use of this same luminous mind that the mind is freed by defilements. Complicated and difficult. This idea of the luminous mind is where we find later Mahayana ideas found in the Yogacara schools you may have heard of, and the Tathagata Garbha schools. The Tathagata Garbha was a later school which emphasized this idea that every single person has the potentiality to awaken to the Buddhahood. Tathagata being the name or word for Buddha, and Garbha being embryo, womb, or container. Every single person contains within them this mind, this potentiality. I'm going to give you a quote from one of the Tathagata Garbha Sutras so you can see the similarity between that found within the luminous mind passages. Here, it is like the genuine gold that has fallen into a pit of waste and been submerged and not seen for years. The pure gold does not decay, yet no one knows that it is there. But suppose there came along someone with supernatural vision who told people, within the impure waste there is a genuine gold trinket. You should get it out and do with it as you please. Similarly, the impure waste is your innumerable pleasures, impurities. The genuine gold trinket is your Tathagata Garbha. For this reason, the Tathagata wildly expounds the Dharma to enable all beings to destroy their pleasures and attain perfect enlightenment. So here we found this view founded upon the ideas found in the Pali canon of the purity of mind, the mind itself being pure and being obscured by defilements. Next, we're looking at a quote from the Zen school where it says, "What do you mean when you speak of contemplating the mind?" Reply, to turn the light of the mind towards the mind's source. That is contemplating the mind. So in a sense, the Buddhist practice, or one of these practices relating to the luminous mind and seeing the source of the mind itself, is essentially just looking back, tracing the mind and observing itself. A very simple practice, but a very difficult one because it's so simple. And many of these teachings that we have found throughout Buddhism are there to describe how this works, but the practice itself is extremely simple. We move on to the esoteric schools, and we're there within the Mahayana Sutra, which is one of the fundamental esoteric texts of the Japanese tradition. The Buddha said, "It is in one's mind that one seeks bodhi, or enlightenment. Why? Because its original nature is pure. The mind is neither within nor without, nor can the mind be apprehended between the two. The mind does not reside in the realm of the eyes, nor does it reside in the realm of the ears, nose, tongue, body, or mind, and neither is it visible, nor does it manifest itself. Why? Because the mind, which has the characteristic of empty space, is free from all differentiation and non-differentiation." So in the esoteric schools, once again, we see here that the mind itself is the place of practice. Bodhi is found within the mind. And in these schools here, the Bodhi tree, the Bodhi manda, the site of the Buddha obtained enlightenment, is found within the mind. My last passage I'll give you is a quote from the Tibetan Dzogchen school. "And in this present moment, when your mind remains in its own condition, without constructing anything, awareness at that moment in itself is quite ordinary. When you look into yourself in this way, nakedly, without any discursive thought, since there is only this pure observing, there will be found a lucid clarity without anyone being there who is the observer. Only a naked, manifest awareness is present. Within this intrinsic awareness, the Chukaya triple bodies are inseparable, fully present as one. Since it is empty and not created anywhere whatsoever, it is the Dharmakaya, the body of the Dharma. Since it is luminous, clarity represents the inherent transparent radiance of emptiness. It is the Sambhogakaya, the intermediary body. And since it is nowhere obstructed or interrupted, it is the Nirmanakaya, the Rupakaya, the body of the Buddha. So here we have the connection between the bodies of the Buddha, essentially being absolute and beyond, but at the same time being immanent and present within ourselves. And within the esoteric schools, the Dharma being the teachings of the Buddha and being the phenomena of experience are not separate, meaning that in every experience, the teachings of the Buddha can be found. And the esoteric schools go as far as to say that all sights themselves are the sights of the Buddha. All sounds are the sounds of the Buddha. And all things are the things contact of the Buddha. This is the idea of the Buddha's continual preaching before and after parinirvana. So all experiences we experience in this world, in this day-to-day life, contain the potentiality and the opportunity for growth when seen from the perspective of liberation and non-attachment. And although this is incredibly simple to perceive, or it's very difficult to do, and all of the teachings and all the different traditions of Buddhism are trying to get us to do this one simple thing, as to let go and to see without attachment, to liberate ourselves of our own views. Very scary, and so faith is necessary. And the Buddhas, in the teachings of all the texts, aim to provide that. Thank you.